in the history of the world where no sect sought to destroy other sect and other ways of life in religion, where everyone's gods and deities were respected, even though armies fought with each other. But then certain sects and ideologies came, which believe that only my way of life is, it is the highway and all other ways of life are so wrong that they should be ended and violently and forcefully. And now when those ideas compete, not just all over the world, but within the boundaries of your modern Indian nation, then that cannot be included when we talk about inclusion in the idea of dharma. And so that's where the idea of Sanatan Dharma is synonymous with the idea of Bharatvarsh, because that is the universal idea that should have been elsewhere, everywhere, but that is now confined to this modern Indian nation. By protecting Sanatan Dharma, we are actually giving abhay to different ways of life who are cultural, really cultural. We define culture and identity. We are giving abhay. And I would say that is the Sanatan case for the world. If there is a Sanatan umbrella all over the world, they have an abhay to be what they want to be within those cultural confines, so that any ideology which is predatory doesn't take over and destroy that idea. That is why the idea of Sanatan Dharma is synonymous with the idea of Bharatvarsh. There is no idea of Bharatvarsh which has something other than Sanatan Dharma in its idea.
The fact is that some of these ideologies are not compatible. They should be made compatible by asking them to relook at their theology. And this should come from that community, ideally. Unfortunately, we've seen very, very little evidence of it. If anything, we've not seen that movement in that direction. We've seen the movement in exactly the opposite direction. They've grabbed the secular state, they've grabbed the constitutional mechanisms that have been given to them to actually increase and entrench their power to have a bargain with the state. And that is unfair, and that cannot be sustained. Sanatana Dharma does not mean that it will exclude and there will be violence. Once you actually think about this theology, Rinkuji spoke about ontology and epistemology, that is there. But the third element in this, which is also coming to us from a distinguished alum of this institution, Sai Deepak ji, when he talked about Bharatiya and Constitution, he spoke about OET. He said theology, which is the telos, as my friend Amrit likes to call it, the theology has to be changed. Unless you are willing to purge the belief that you have that nobody else has a right to live except as your religious denomination, you are not part of a civil society. And to understand this, you don't need to, sometimes it becomes a little difficult for us to face this cognitive dissonance because we don't like to think about ourselves as bad people, right? None of us like to feel that about ourselves. You develop a distance from India and look at what's happening in the world. Look at the world politics and say, show me one area where multiculturalism has worked. One area. This liberal nonsense and the hill that they've chosen to die on, which is the Abrahamic faith, is not going to survive in the global civilization, or the global civilization is not going to survive that. So we don't even need to worry about being right in a prudish sense about Bharat. Just look at the world as it is today, critically and intellectually, and you will notice that this is just violence. We are just being trained, indoctrinated into suffering violence by the state, and that should end.